Hey everyone, it's Dasha here and welcome back to my channel where I do my best to teach you guys English, give you personal development tips and other great content. Today, we're gonna learn 15 different body part idioms in English. To be completely honest with you, I never really gave it much thought as to how absurd English idioms sound to people that have just started learning English or simply to non-native speakers in general. And I think these particular idioms are next level ridiculous. Let me know in your comments below if you have any bizarre body part idioms in your native language. First body part idiom of the day: to keep something or someone at arm's length. In everyday language use, to keep something at arm's length means to avoid being close or friendly to someone or something. For example, imagine that you don't trust a certain person in your friend circle. You could say, I don't trust him, so I keep him at arm's length. That means that you try to avoid that person as much as possible. We say arm's length to describe the fact that you're trying to keep some kind of distance between yourself and another person. And in this case, the length of your arm is that distance. But in fancy schmancy corporate lingo, you might have heard the expression arm's length transaction, which is basically a principle in contract law and used within the context of business and financial transactions. In simple terms, it means that a transaction like a real estate transaction is taking place between independent parties that act in their own self-interest to get the deal. So these parties are not actually acting under any kind of duress or pressure, and they're generally thought to have equal bargaining powers. Moving on to the idiom to get something off your chest. If you have something on your chest, it means that you're keeping something inside of you that you want to get out, something that you want to express. And it could be an emotion or an opinion or maybe even a confession or anything that could be bothering you. It's a highly commonly used expression, so make sure to write it down in case you don't already know it. Let's say, for example, you're very frustrated at work because your clients are annoying and you have way too much work going on than you can actually handle. Then one day you decide to have a talk with your manager and you tell him, hey Bob, we really need to talk. There's something I want to get off my chest. And then you proceed to a full-on moaning and whinging session with them. Now let's look at the idiom to get cold feet.
You got cold feet.
If you have cold feet, put on a pair of socks. Just kidding. That was such a bad joke. It means that you're having doubts about doing something important. And it also kind of means that you're scared to do something and you're thinking about not doing it. A very common example is when you're about to get married. So imagine that you're getting married tomorrow and you start getting second thoughts that maybe this isn't for you and you don't really want to go through with it. Well, in that case, you've got cold feet. But it doesn't have to be a wedding. You could get cold feet about moving to a new country, starting a new job, or even going bungee jumping. Really any big or major event. To give someone a hand is the next on our list. It simply means to help someone, as if they've just fallen down on the floor and you're bending over and you're offering them your hand to help them get up. An example could be a situation where you're cleaning the house and you ask your significant other, hey honey, could you please give me a hand instead of could you please help me? Next is the idiom off the top of my head. And it's a very commonly used expression. If you say something off the top of your head, you say it without giving much thought, mainly because you don't have enough time to reflect on it. You could use it in a situation where, for example, your boss asks you, hey, do you remember when was the last time that we issued an invoice for this client? You could say, off the top of my head, I think it was last May. In another example, a friend of yours could ask you, I don't know, do you remember the restaurant we went to on Gina's birthday last year? If you're not sure, you could just say, no, not off the top of my head. And here you're basically saying that You can't remember it at this moment in time, but if you had a little bit more time to think about it, you might remember. Now, don't confuse off the top of my head with to be in over my head. I know, English is so, what's the word? Creative. You would use the idiom to be in over your head when you're doing something that you can't handle anymore, probably because it's way too difficult or complicated. In other words, you're doing something that's beyond your abilities or capacity. As a simple example, let's say that you just graduated from university and you have absolutely no work experience and you get your first job, but this particular job turns out to be very demanding and you can't handle it. And you're thinking, oh my God, why did I take this job? In that case, you're in over your head because this job is way too hard for you and you can't handle it. Up next, pain in the neck. You could use this idiom to describe someone or something that's extremely annoying. Someone that really grinds your gears and drives you up the wall. It could be a teacher, it could be a manager, a sibling, or a difficult assignment that you were given at school. For example, imagine that you have a kid and he's being very difficult and very whiny. You could say, oh, he's such a pain in the neck. You could, of course, use the term pain in the butt, which is somewhat rude. You'd typically use these two phrases in front of friends and generally people that you know well. And on the subject of necks, in English we also have the expression to stick your neck out. If you stick a neck out for someone, it means that you're exposing yourself to some kind of risk for someone. And to stick your neck out in general simply means to expose yourself to risk. Take as an example a situation where, let's say, you're at work and you're friends with a senior manager. Then one day you screw up really badly and that manager sticks her neck out for you and takes the blame for what you have done. Knowing that, she could be fired. But if you want to use the expression to stick your neck out, you could say something like, I don't want to stick my neck out and drive when it's snowing, which means that you don't want to risk driving in the snow because you think it's dangerous. Let's move on to the idiom to pick your brain. Whilst it sounds pretty graphic and gory, it simply means to get advice or information from someone. For example, we're working on a project together and I need your help or consultation. And I could say, hey, could I pick your brain for a minute? Instead of saying, hey, could you help me out? I need your advice, I need your input. But when you ask someone if you could pick their brain, you're not asking them for physical help like carrying a heavy box. You're instead asking a person for information or knowledge, as if you want to crack open their head and pick through their brain to find that information. Yeah, on second thought, that does sound a bit too graphic. The expression, I'm all ears. It means that you have someone's undivided attention and you're listening to them. In other words, that person has your full attention. For example, imagine that you're working at your desk and you're super concentrated and your boyfriend or girlfriend, or wife or husband, whatever, wants to talk to you. You could say, one sec, honey, let me finish this email and then I'm all ears. Meaning, once I'm done, you'll have my undivided attention. To let your hair down is one of my favorite idioms. It means to loosen up and to relax. Some could say that this expression is reserved to women, but men can totally use it as well. Like, why not? Who said men can't have long hair? But a guy would normally say, loosen my tie. And I think you can now imagine where this idiom comes from. If you picture the phrase, let your hair down, imagine a woman that tied her hair back for work and then she comes home and lets her hair down to just relax. And now imagine a man coming home from a long day at work, at the office, loosening his tie and getting ready to wind down. It could also mean not to be serious or uptight. For example, we all have that one friend that's always stressed out and is really uptight. You could tell them, gosh, Julia, you really should let your hair down every once in a while. To keep an eye on something means to watch over something or take care of it. For example, it's lunchtime and you go and boil potatoes in the kitchen while your flatmate is sitting working at the kitchen table. You could say, "Hey Joe, could you please keep an eye on these potatoes for me? I need to jump on a Zoom call." You're basically asking Joe to make sure that the water doesn't spill over or the kitchen doesn't catch fire. You can also keep an eye on a person. So imagine that you just recruited a junior analyst and you don't really trust her to do her job properly. You could tell her supervisor, "Hey, we really need to keep an eye on this one because she will quite likely make mistakes." Number 13, to go over your head. Notice this is completely different to the idiom to be in over your head. And it actually has two different meanings. For the first meaning, picture this. If something goes over your head, it means that it didn't enter your ears and you didn't process it. And so the idiom means that you don't understand something and that something just went over your head and you missed it. For example, you're chatting to a friend and you suddenly just switch off and completely miss something important that they just said. You could say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, that went over my head. Could you please repeat that?" As for the second definition, it could mean that you'll deal with a more senior or important person. Let's say that you pull a Karen at a department store and you tell the salesperson, "If you don't give me a refund straight away, I'll have to go over your head and go straight to your manager." Okay, calm down, Karen. Moving on, when something costs an arm and a leg. If something costs an arm and a leg, it means that it's really, really expensive, like a Chanel bag or rent in London. As an example, you could say, "I think I can't afford putting my child through university. It will cost me an arm and a leg," meaning that sending your child to university is very expensive and you can't afford it. And finally, to play it by ear. It basically means to freestyle or to wing it. Put it differently, to play it by ear means to do something without a plan of action or any kind of preparation. A typical example would be when you go on holiday to, say, Rome, and you don't have any specific plans because you just want to relax and chill. You could say that you haven't planned anything and that you'll go there and play it by ear. That way, you're just going to take each day a step at a time and do whatever you feel like doing on that particular day. Which now brings us to the end of this video. As ever, thank you guys so much for watching. I truly and most genuinely hope that you loved this video and learned a few new English expressions. Drop me a comment below with your favorite body part idiom and make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more great English learning videos. I'll catch you later. Bye!